Hi guys, welcome back and thanks for joining me for another video. I'm Michelle and I'm an author, coach, and advocate, empowering you to find and follow your design. Today I want to share with you 3 major ways to connect with your noble self and to help you understand how to listen to your own divine guidance. So I want to share with you 3 major ways to connect to your noble self. Now, as you've known, or maybe you're just joining me for the first time, I want to share briefly who the noble self is and then talk about how to connect with them. So the noble self is our soul. It's the part of us that is connected to the divine. It's our higher self. It's our intuition. It's our guiding light, guiding star. It's the part of us that truly knows who we are, what we're here for, what we're meant for, and how and what kind of decisions we need to be making on a daily basis. The noble self is the part of us that is our guiding light and is balanced by our shadow self, which is complementary and supportive. The shadow self being the ego, being the lower self, and being the protective part of ourselves. I don't want to spend too much time on the shadow self in this video. There's many videos about that. I want to focus now on getting us into understanding how to connect to this noble self. And as I've mentioned, of course, this is the part of us that is connected to the divine. And I believe that the noble self is connected to the divine through our intuition, and our intuition is housed in the body. And the reason why I believe this, one, because other thinkers have believed this and meditation experts and things like that, but also in my own understanding and my own experience, what I have found is that our head or our brain can be in the past or the future, right? So we can think through, oh, I shouldn't have done that thing, or I did that great thing in the past, or my to-do list for the future, what do I have planned for tomorrow? Our heart, similarly, can be in the past or the future. So the heart will be, love-stricken or regretful or sad for the past, or anticipatory or sad for the future, whatever it might be. I believe that the one part of us that can only be, and both the head and the heart can be in the present, but they do tend to be in all 3 places. I believe that the body is the only place that can be only in the present, right? Our body can't be physically, well, first of all, the body can only be physically somewhere, right? It's not a mental, it's not an emotional state. It's a physical thing. And it can't be 2 steps ago when you walked into the room, and it can't be 3 steps from now when you leave the room. It can only be right where we are. So in order to be in the present state, which is where the divine gives us guidance, we connect to our noble self through our bodies and through our intuition. So let me tell you 3 ways in order to do that, now that I've given you some of the construct and the outline of kind of how I see all of these things. So the first one is going to be something that some of us might be familiar with, either in practice or at least have heard about, which is the idea of meditation, grounding, doing something that allows us to get into the present. Now, I think there's lots of different ways. Meditation is one of the ones that's kind of the most understood at this point in time, which is truly a point in time of stopping everything and being in the present. Now, for those of you who may not have meditated or have an idea that it means like clearing your mind and getting out of things, that's not actually what it is at all. Meditation at its core is about being here right now. Now, if in the here there are thoughts that cross our mind, or our to-do list passes, or some emotions pass through, that's fine. All we do is we ask, okay, I noticed that came through. Okay, let's work on that later. Let's go back to the present. So sometimes you'll hear people talk about having a mantra, having something to say that brings you back to the present. And the reason for that is because in the present is where your body and your heart and your spirit can all be at peace. So that's kind of the idea around meditation. So that's just a little side in case you've kind of decided it wasn't for you, I can't do meditating, I can't keep my mind free. No, none of us can. That's not the point, actually. We are humans, and we constantly have things that are coming through us. But it's about bringing those all into the moment and into the present. So one of the things to understand is that there are other ways to be in the present, right? You might have noticed it in those moments where maybe you were driving down the street and a sunset caught you, off guard. And if you had a chance to pull over, you were in just that moment, right? That moment of just the sunset and being amazed by it. Maybe, you're somewhere, somewhere in nature, and you're just so surrounded by that and so happy. Maybe you're at a concert and there's music and you're just in that moment and you're feeling it and the live music is just coming through you. Maybe it's creating live music. Maybe it's, actually singing or a musical instrument that just gets you where you don't think of anything else. You're just right there. Maybe it's creating art. Maybe it's dancing. Maybe it's martial arts. But each of us, hopefully, either have something or can return to something that we've enjoyed in the past that get us in that moment. So we don't always have to think about this grounding and this connection with ourselves as being sitting still and being serious and focusing. It can be any time where the past and the future disappear. That's this idea. And the more we give ourselves that space, and the more we give ourselves, our noble self, that space, the more they feel loved and they're able to then speak to us. So that would be kind of the first thing I would say. Some sort of daily or regular practice of being able to be grounded, being in the present, being there for yourself. The next piece I would say about that would be then listening. So creating space each day where you're just listening for your noble self. So I know some people meditation might be the place they're doing that, or they're in the middle of, doing art or whatever, and they start to kind of, maybe there was this, something they were trying to solve and just an idea, an aha came to mind, right? Sometimes in the shower, right? One of the things you can think about is, why do we get ahas in the shower? Well, in that point in time, we're pretty much mostly only in the moment, right? Most of us enjoy a shower. It feels relaxing. We're not usually, a lot in the future or the past. So it's when these ahas come. So this is where the noble self then gets a chance to, while we're doing these things that keep us in the present, starts to be able to speak to us. I can tell you one specific thing that I do as well, in addition to just being open to ahas, is every morning I've started a practice where I journal. Now, obviously, as a writer, journaling works for me. It helps me a lot, so you could do something different. But for me, I've noticed I've started to ask myself two key questions. I ask myself, what does my noble self want me to know today? And I write it, and then I see what the answer is when I write it. But I know you could probably ask the same question and verbalize it, hear something, etc. And then I ask, what lights me up today? So I want to know where my joy is today, right? Now, can I spend my entire day in that joy? Probably not. Maybe, who knows? But at least it gives me an idea. Today I'm really excited about this thing. And as adults, a lot of us haven't really spent time thinking about what we're excited about anymore. So I found that to be useful. One of the things to know as you start to connect with your noble self is that if you haven't been connecting with them, they might be quiet at first. If you think about, if you've ever met a very shy child, or even a reticent or slow to open up adult, you can't expect that they're going to all of a sudden be super extroverted and trust you immediately. If you haven't been around for the relationship, if you haven't been listening to your noble self, at first they might not trust that if they share something that you're going to listen, that you're going to spend time, that you're going to listen to their advice. So what I recommend is that whatever you do in this meditative space, again, music, art, dancing, meditation itself, yoga, swimming, whatever it is, do it regularly. Open yourself up to the question of asking your noble self, and then just be. And if you get an answer, great. If you don't get an answer, that's to be expected. You haven't been around for a while. But just be compassionate and just continue to return until you start hearing. So this first step of the grounding meditation, maybe asking questions, you might get, an aha or something that's verbal. But another way to connect with yourself is the second one I want to share, which is noticing what your body is saying. So you might ask a question about something, and you might not get a word, but you might get a memory, or you might get a visual, or you might get something. Or you might say, I'm supposed to go spend time with a friend today. Is that what we want to do? And your body might go, and feel good, and so you'll know it's your noble self. Or it might go, I don't really want to go spend time with this person, so you know your answer. Now you have to decide whether you follow that or not, but I would recommend if you ask the noble self for an answer, plan to follow their instructions so that they trust you more and they start to give you more guidance. And in the third place, in addition to there being an actual message that comes or your body speaking to you, the third place is your emotions. So you might be asking things, you might be wondering what's happening, you might be wanting to connect, and you might notice that you're not getting either of those things, but all of a sudden you're emotional. Maybe you're feeling anger, you don't know where it's coming from. Take the time, figure out what that is. Maybe there's sadness, maybe there's tears of joy. But our noble self speaks to us through our emotions as well. And so it's very important that instead of sitting and saying, well, this emotion doesn't make sense. Why would I be sitting watching a sunset and all of a sudden I get angry? Well, instead of interrogating the noble self, what the heck? Why would you have this emotion here? This makes no sense logically. I don't, your mind gets in the way again. Just say, okay, noble self, what do you want to tell me about this? What about the sunset brings up anger? And who knows? It might be related. It might be that there is a foot of a memory of something else, and now your noble self wants to tell you something there, wants you to heal something, wants you to understand, to not go back and talk to that same person that made you angry because maybe it's actually a toxic setup. Who knows? But in this conversation about wanting to connect with your noble self, you have to be open to the conversation coming at you in different ways. Also know that the noble self will not give you things you can't handle. It's not going to ask you to heal things that you don't have the tools for or the support for or the whatever for. You may feel overwhelmed, you may get emotions, but this is where you start to pull together and make sure that you have encouragers, that you have people in your world that are there to support you, that you have tools, that if you need it, therapist, pastor, coach, self-help classes, etc. You have things in play so that as you're continuing to develop yourself and you're wanting to have access to this noble self, so that you can have access to the guidance and know better what is your design, what are you supposed to be doing, how do you operate moment to moment as well as the big picture, that you need to have in place the support system to be able to help you navigate all of that. So this was 3 basic ways to connect with your noble self. And just in closing, as I've already mentioned, being patient with the process, being compassionate, trusting that your noble self is there, and that over time you will get more and more connected into understanding what they're saying, how they're saying it, and being able to follow their guidance and seeing what happens and being curious and excited to see how your life unfolds in different and more abundant ways because you're following them. If this video was helpful to you, please subscribe to my channel. If you're already subscribed, please hit the bell so that you can be notified of all future videos. If you want to follow me on social media, learn how to buy my book, join my community, or join one of my courses, please check out the description after this video. Thanks for joining, and glad to have you here. Hope to see you at the next one.